the thought-provoking discussion, tackle the tough questions, challenge assumption, and give a voice to the unheard. This is the Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM.
Welcome on board the Morning Express.
Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Welcome to the Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM.
Alright, good morning and welcome to Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. It's the 18th of November 2024. How was your weekend? It's a beautiful Monday. It's an exciting one. I'm excited. I know a lot of people do not really, enjoy Mondays or did not really look forward to Mondays. But, Monday actually does have a lot to offer. It has this new energy that it brings with it. It has this, this pump, this adrenaline rush that comes with Monday, that you're just ready to take on anything and you're just ready to do anything. Okay, so I just tap into that and you will definitely be fine. This is Mainland 98.3 FM. You're on to the Morning Express. It's Trends in the Papers. We'll be looking at the major trending stories on the front pages of our papers this morning. I have the Punch, the Guardian, and Vanguard newspaper in no particular order, and giving analysis to these stories, we have Fuad Sahid somewhere by the phone line waiting to give his own thoughts as regards the stories that we'll be looking through this morning. My name is Omobola Sandra and you are welcome. We are live on Facebook and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM, so you can join the program on those platforms, share your thoughts, your contributions in the live chat section, and as the show progresses, we also get to take them by the time we move on to Mainland Focus. Okay, so it promises to be an amazing run. All you have to do is stay tuned. Okay, so we'll do this up until 8:30, and by 8:30 we take a commercial break. We are back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, and that is the part where it gets really interesting, because that's the part where you get to be part of the conversation. You get to share your own thoughts, your own views as regards the focal points of the day. Now, today being Monday, it's only right for us to bring you up to speed as regards the major stories that trended over the weekend. And of course, it happened on Saturday. Well, APC won. Lucky Aiyedatiwa, the incumbent governor, won with over 320,000 votes. All right, and that has been done away with. Of course, Ogun State also went to the polls on Saturday for local government elections, but the major issue as regards elections now has been vote buying. It's becoming a norm. It's becoming something that, if it doesn't happen, then something is not happening right, or something is not going right, or something is not going well. So what exactly is going on? There were videos, there were pictures that were circulating over the weekend as regards sports where funds were being elections. Is our elections becoming monetized? Well, be monetized, but is that the norm now? Are we accepting it? Is that the way forward now? Are we just going to turn a blind eye to it and just move like, oh well, I mean, it's no be today? Okay, so is it a no be today attitude that we're going to go into this with? There's a lot that we are lacking as regards governance, and if only we can get it right at the elections. Everybody's saying, with all the hardship that's going on now, let's wait till 2027 and make the change that we need, that we desire. But if the election is heavily hinged on monetization, are we truly going to get out of this quagmire that we have found ourselves? This is a big question that also was posed on Political Roundtable yesterday with Said Fuad and his analysts at 6 p.m. But the question will definitely keep going on. How do we get out of it? How do we, how do we handle it? What do we do about it to ensure that at the end of the day, no matter what the politicians throw at us, we can stand as one and ensure that the right person gets the position, and we can then enjoy the dividends of democracy. All right, that is the crux of it, or whatever it is that we guess. All right, 7:45 a.m. That is time check as at now, and I have. What? Can you please stay one place? Okay. Trying to bring Fuad on board so we can have a
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you very much. I wish you all the best in, whatever it is that you're doing this week.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm just going to leave it at that. Then after you're done, or when you're done, okay, then we can, we'll just party it out and we'll just, like, oh, yay, congratulations. And,
no problem.
That. But anyways, so we're talking about, vote buying and the fact that it's becoming a part of, our election process in this country. And it's becoming really embarrassing. There were videos, there were pictures that were circulating over the weekend as regards what went down in both Ogun State and Ondo State. Of course, Ondo State being the highlight because it's the governorship elections. So what do you think we can do to get out of this? Are we accepting this as a norm? Are we going to just turn a blind eye to it and just move forward and say, okay, well, no be today. I mean, it has always been there, so there's nothing we can do about it. Or is there something that we can actually do about it?
Well, it's unfortunate, Sandra, that we're beginning to accept this anomaly as a norm. What is supposed to be abnormal it is now becoming a part of our normal lives. We see it, we deny it, we live in denial about it, and we also deceive ourselves hearing about these things. Sandra, let's really take a look at this. In the United States, for example, and in other well-developed nations of the world, when inflation figures are high, when the economy is not doing well, what you see, for example, in the U.S. is that, look, as a sitting president, you begin to put your mind on the midterm elections. So when the elections come, that's going to be the major reason why you may be losing control of the parliament, because the votes are going to be more like a referendum on the performance of the government. And then when there's time to go on the general elections, presidential, governorship, and what have you, you also see voters, showing their disdain, their displeasure, and disappointment on the economic outlook and performance of the governors, or the government, with their votes. But in Nigeria, it's ironical to see, Sandra, if you look across the papers, inflation figures are high, extremely high. I think food inflation now officially from the MBS is over 39%. Just about 39.
Food inflation.
I'm talking about inflation. Food inflation is close to 40%.
Food.
39.1% officially. Inflation, I think, is about 34. Yeah, headline inflation is about 34%. 33.8. It's just about 34%. It has gone up again. And then you see rising food prices. The hardship in the land, the tough economy. Sandra, as we speak, I don't know whether the papers have reported it today, but over the weekend, the IMF has also released their report saying the reforms of this current government is not working. In fact, what they've said is that, look, in some other African countries like Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire, and I think Angola, there's a remarkable achievement. There's a remarkable, I think, Zambia, with the reforms of those countries. But here in Nigeria, the IMF report is there, well detailed. It was delivered by the representative at the Lagos Business School to say that, look, all of these reforms are not working. There's a problem with communication. The fiscal end of the reforms are not working. And that, look, they are surprised that despite all of the prescriptions they've given to the government, they've not been able to achieve some form of convergence between monetary and fiscal policy. Sandra, despite all of that, we've had 2 off-cycle elections. And you've seen the performance of the ruling party. In Edo State, it was almost, yes, tough, but it was almost some form of easy victory for the APC. In Ondo State, too, it's a landslide, whether you like it or not. The margin is wide enough to call it a landslide. So you ask yourself, is that not an irony? Despite the suffering, the hardship in the land, the IMF coming out to say the reforms are not working, inflation figures still rising, food inflation almost hitting 40%. A party in power is still winning elections convincingly. Is that not an irony? Sandra? So, to answer your questions about vote buy, maybe maybe actually when it comes to winning elections in Nigeria, it's not about performance in government. It's just really about, look, the people with the deepest pockets who are able to amass enough money resources to buy people's vote. It's really, really very unfortunate. And what it means generally is that, look, with our democracy, we're going nowhere.
That's really unfortunate, just as you put it. Thank you very much, Sir Fuad. But of course, there's still a lot to talk about as regards the Ondo governorship poll. But before that, there's also, this also really interesting story that we need to talk about before we move back to the Ondo governorship election, because that's, the major story across most of the papers this morning. So the Prime Minister of India is in Nigeria, or was in Nigeria over the weekend.
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting one as well. And whilst it was, whilst it was an interesting one to have, or while it was a good one, for bilateral relations and all, to have the Prime Minister of India, this is the first time a Prime Minister from India would visit in 17 years. So it was quite, a remarkable,
a major one for the country, yeah.
But what do you think about the president decorating Narendra Modi with Nigeria's second highest national honor of GCON, Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger?
Well, I'm a bit indifferent about it, actually, Sandra. I've seen people, go on social media. I think the PDP has also added their voice to what it calls a misplaced priority. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu conferring that national honor on the Prime Minister of India, who visited over the weekend. But I think that, look, if you look at the long-standing relationship, bilateral trade relationship between Nigeria and India, you understand that, look, it's a relationship that is so important enough for us to pay attention to that kind of visit. Whether it was an overkill, whether it's a misplaced priority to have conferred that honor on Mr. Modi, it's a different conversation. And for me, I think I'm just indifferent, really. No, whatever the honor brings, that's not the major point of the conversation for me. I think what we should be looking at is, look, how do we balance our trade relationship between India? How do we balance our trade relationship with India, if you understand what I'm saying? What are they bringing into the country? What are we giving back to them? Have we gotten to the point where we can say there's a balance of trade between the two nations? Or we are basically the dumping ground of the Indian nation? Whether we also like it or not, I think we also have to appreciate the Indian community investment in Nigeria, Sandra. They produce all manner of things. A lot of the factories are owned by Indians. And whether we like it or not, they become a major stakeholder when it comes to industrialization, trade, commerce, and businesses in Nigeria. So we also have to appreciate that. But I think that, look, beyond all of these conversations around the national honor, the question is, as a nation, how well have we risen to the point where we can say, look, it's a balance of trade between the two nations?
Just have to quickly, check your thoughts as regards this one, because just as you have mentioned, it was caused some kind of ruckus as regards, really why. But, they've been able to justify, the presidency has been able to justify the conferment of the, honor, saying that Nigeria values its excellent relationship with India, and we need to work to deepen and broaden the same mutual benefits, and also looking at, quite.
I think the Indian community has done very, very well, really.
Partnership and bilateral relationship. Okay, then. Also, let's also look at Chidinma Adetshina, came second at Miss Universe.
Yeah.
Yes, and South Africa has been coming from Nigeria as regards. Well, some of them are of the opinion, oh, thank God she didn't win, because it was just a lot of it's a good thing she didn't get through, just trying to follow through with what they started, which she had to pull out from the Miss South Africa pageant and come to Nigeria and contest on the platform of Miss Nigeria before she went to Miss Universe. It was quite an interesting thing, but congratulations to.
I don't know why Africa cannot support Africa. I don't know why Africa wants to pull down Africa, because again, I don't know. It's just unfortunate, really, that we have not gotten the bridge. Now, until Africa begins to support Africa, until Africa helps Africa, nobody out there will help Africa. It's very unfortunate, really. But I think it's also the Chidinma story also, brings to the fore the fact that Africa is yet to have any global direction as a people. If the people in South Africa are still saying they are happy that she didn't win, she's a winner actually, because as a second runner-up, as a first runner-up actually, sorry. I think they need to go and check what comes with what she has been able to do for herself. There's a lot really, and so I just see that as envy, basically, because she's not just the first runner-up; she's now Miss Universe Nigeria. I think the Oceania,
Africa and Oceania.
Africa and Oceania. So if there's a Miss Universe that they need to see in Africa, she's the one. And so she's also still representing South Africa, whether they like it or not. But it's just unfortunate that really that we're discussing this when we expect that Africa is supposed to support Africa. Again, we keep saying it and we say it again. Congratulations to Chidinma, but Africa's progress is in Africa. And until Africa comes together to push the agenda for progress, nothing will change for Africa.
All right, and of course, over the weekend, we also had former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who had to say one or two. He just had I just had to say something, and he said quite a lot as regards, the state of the nation, and the use of the word state capture has been a big one for a lot of people, for a lot of political analysts, and trying to look behind what exactly is former President Olusegun Obasanjo trying to say as regards, his thoughts as regards the administration of the country, the state of the nation, and the way out or the way forward. Your thoughts, Juan?
Yesterday I think we had this conversation, and I think Barrister Curtis brought a very interesting perspective to this issue of state capture, as highlighted by the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, where he's saying that, look, when you begin to see institutions of state taken over by political leaders through their family members, cronies, you have to start to get worried. In that audio message that the former president presented at that particular summit at the Yale University in the United States, at some point in that audio message, he made a scathing remark to the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, when he called him Baba Go Slow. Although he didn't mention their name. But of course, there was a time he had written about Baba Go Slow. So we knew he was actually talking about the former president, the immediate past president, Muhammadu Buhari. And then when he now talked about Emilokon, of course, then everybody knows that when you say Emilokon, you are talking about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And basically what the former president is saying is that these two, their leadership is the reason why we are now deeper down the rabbit hole. We are going deeper into the rabbit hole with economic policies and what have you. And so what he's saying is that, look, there's hope. Even though Nigeria is a failing state, it's regarded as a failing state, there's still hope if we can get, if we can do the right thing, reform our electoral process, have more focused leadership, get more intentional about development, we can always get out of the rabbit hole. But it's worried, really. Again, we have to begin to ask ourselves this question, Sandra. Do we take the message and the messenger, or we just take the messenger and leave the message, or we take both? I will take this message in this regard. I have our political leaders. Then you also have the religious leaders who are also co-conspirators, the collabo. And then you also have the people in the business world who also collaborate with our political leaders. So the three comes together to collaborate to steal our resources, capture the Nigerian state, which the Olusegun Obasanjo is talking about. So while the politicians deploy propaganda, misinformation, and what have you, to continue to deceive the average Nigerian, the business people are able to help them shield this stolen wealth. You understand what I'm saying? So they steal this money. The guys in the business world accept it. They are able to shield it, put it into different businesses and what have you. So that stolen money keeps, going around the cycle of this group of people. And then the religious leaders, Sandra, what do? They now help to divert attention. So when you think that, why are these people doing it? They tell you, no, you have to pray. Just continue to pray. It's a spiritual thing. So it's a collaboration, Sandra. It is a collaboration. And until Nigerians understand that, look, in taking the state, the Nigerian state out of this.
Thank you very much, Said Fuad. Time check right now is 8 o'clock and you're still on to Trends in the Papers. Let's get into what the papers have for us this morning. This is Mainland 98.3 FM and with thoughts and your opinion in the live chat section on both platforms. Let's move now, shall we? We have the Punch newspaper, the Guardian newspaper and Vanguard newspaper in no particular order, of course. And we have here the major headline on the front page of the Punch. Aiyedatiwa's victory. INEC, PDP disagree over alleged fraud in Ondo poll. Opposition says election is the worst in history. INEC and APC defend the results and Tinubu and governors hail Aiyedatiwa. So that's what we have. I mean, it was quite an interesting run. Landslide, just as Fuad had said, over 300,000 votes to the APC and a little over 100,000 for the, the next person, and then the Labour came in with quite a very, very, very discouraging number. But
1,000 something.
It's okay for us. It's okay. Thank you. That's all. Let's just leave it.
The man is saying his Labour Party is the PDP of the NLC that made him lose.
Labour Party, yes, the Labour Party candidate is saying that it's OB and NLC that did not allow him to win at the election. He blames them for the.
He would have won. He would have won if not for he had a case where he was removed as a candidate, and at the time minutes I think the court
they reinstated him. Yeah, he was.
But even if that did not happen, he wasn't going to.
No. We can't say that.
I think it was not going to.
Mr. Ayodele Olorunfemi, that is the Labour Party, candidate who has blamed Peter Obi and the Nigeria Labour Congress for his predicament.
What predicament?
His predicament.
So they made him score a little over 1,000 votes. That I would have also scored if I contested in that election. Even the fact that I'm not from Ondo.
Well, maybe the fact that his return to the ballot was just a few days to the election. I mean, couldn't that have been a factor as well?
He wasn't going to win that election. They were already predicting. Look, they said it was going to be a 2-horse race. We knew that from the beginning. With all due respect to him, it was a 2-horse race. Look, even when they did the debate, why do you think the TV station focused on APC?
Well, we had called that out for for being wrong on so many grounds. Okay, but the truth is, moving forward, Mr. Olorunfemi has said he's not going to forgive Peter Obi and he will not forgive NLC. Yes, he has vowed not to forgive them for the role that they played in scuttling his Ondo governorship campaign. He had so much hope. He was really optimistic, and the fact that he said if he had succeeded in having his last-minute door-to-door campaign with the supporters, that he probably would have gotten somewhere. He said, and I quote, I'm quoting now, "I have Peter Obi and the NLC to thank for that. They have scuttled my aspirations and chances to win this Ondo election. These people spoiled things for us. With that PDP reject they wanted to force on the party. Their insistence on having a Biseni on the ballot ruined everything for me. They just capitalized on the crisis between the Labour Party and the Nigeria Labour Congress to create problems. Can you imagine that Ebiseni wrote a letter to the court in my name without my knowledge, saying I have withdrawn from the race? They cannot exclude me from such a position." It's just, really messy what's going on, within the Labour Party, and they need to get their acts right. But, I mean, it's entitled to how he feels. I'm so sorry for how he feels. But then, just as Fuad mentioned earlier, APC, interestingly, another interesting thing that we also need to highlight, Fuad, from the Ondo election is the fact that the APC won all of the local governments in the election as well, for all of it.
All 18.
Everything, all the 18. There was not even. It was so as bad as it had in some places where it was it was almost as if PDP had no showing. Okay, well, I mean, it was an interesting one. Another major highlight from the Ondo election, Fuad, was the presence of all the APC governors from different parts of the country in Ondo State. I mean, I see it as teamwork. But what do you think? What do you think?
Teamwork. Yes. Well, see, nobody is saying they should not come to support one of their own. Aiyedatiwa is also a sitting governor, so it was expected that they will all come to those states.
We saw the same thing at Edo.
No, they also did the same thing at Edo State, and they were able to deliver. So we also expected that they was going to come. But you know what we were questioning on political roundtable yesterday, Sandra, is this idea of the governors now sitting back in the state. Yes, for the campaigns, why not? But immediately campaigns ended, why can't they go back to their respective states?
To celebrate with.
What's the idea of sitting back in that state, sitting down there? What does that mean? What's the idea? And you know what, by Sakota, I know they were saying yesterday that look, it is to control resources. And when you deploy resources, you also want to sit back to see how the resources are deployed. And the resources in this case, allegedly, from the reports we are getting, is the deployment of money. So, you know, so it's about who has the most money to give out in the form of resources. You understand what I'm saying? So, but I also had to ask the analyst yesterday, that, okay, even if that is the reason, the resources, can they still stay in their states, Sandra, and monitor it? And they said, no, in politics it doesn't work like that. You have to put your eye where your mouth is, so that you don't hear stories that touch. You understand what I'm saying? But I think the optics are not really good. This idea of governors leaving their state to go converge when an off-cycle election is being held in the name of showing support to the candidate of the party. You understand what I'm saying? The APC is in a celebratory mood. And I think the idea of all governors also converging in those states, it's also about show off to the president. My mind tells me that most of these governors are also sending a message to Mr. President. We are here. We are on ground. We have helped you to deliver again. You can trust us. We have what it takes. So I also see some form of eye service, you know, and you know, the governor of Lagos State, I think he has a strategic role in these off-cycle elections when it comes to the APC, because he seems to be the leader of the team. In Edo State, we saw how he was everywhere. He was on ground. In Ondo State, we've seen the same thing again. But the governor of Ogun State is also always available, Sandra. Even though that's a state that requires a lot of attention from him.
I was even a little.
That one I walk over now.
We also had. I don't like it, please.
But the governor should have been in the states where the local government elections.
We had local government elections going on at the same time. You know that Ondo was having its.
And he was in Ondo State.
And the governor of our state was in Ondo
State. What does that tell you, Sandra? And the APC still won everything. In
Ogun State. That's what I'm getting to. So at the end of the day, APC still cleared all the local government seats in Ogun State, and then we'll have another people going to Gandobali and say, "Oh wow, this is amazing."
Sandra, on Saturday I moved around parts of Ogun State just to see things for myself, to see how the elections were being conducted, and I must tell you that it's a complete embarrassment, a complete waste of time. It's a complete show of shame. Basically what I saw. You hardly saw voting materials. You know that at the end of the day, our local government elections have become a complete joke. It's just a complete waste of time. And we saw that again, like we've seen, will also repeat itself in. I can tell you that the governor does not even very important. And there was a lot of credibility about the way it was going to be conducted. There's no way the governor would have left the state to go and do no election. But they knew that, that one is sorted. Maybe the result was already available then, even before the election.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Said Fuad. It's quite a lot to talk about when it comes to this particular election, looking at a review of the Ondo governorship election. But I trust that Ʀᴏɪɪ Aᴊɪɪbᴏ will do justice to that by 4 p.m. in the Situation Room. There's a lot to talk about as regards that. But moving on now, we've been able to touch, the major aspects of it. Hope that
the president has told the PDP and whoever is unhappy with the results to go to court. So maybe Ʀᴏɪɪ will get us the PDP's reaction. Maybe their spokesperson will be in the Situation Room, to explain why they are not happy. Yeah. But they have told them go to court.
To explain why they are not happy.
And now, they are not. Look, Mr. Agboola said this is the worst election ever conducted.
They have called it a fraud. Yes, they have called it.
So they have to come and now tell us why they think it's a fraud.
INEC has responded. There's a lot of back and forth, but of course, as we all know, what it ends is go to court. Whether or not they will, time will tell. Now that's that as regards the Ondo governorship election. Still a lot to talk about as regards that. But let's move on to other stories now. 11 minutes past 1. That is the time check us at now. And still on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have here just above the masthead, minimum wage, federal government to spend 6.5 trillion naira. And that's what's captured in the medium-term expenditure framework. Excuse me. So the federal government has indicated that its spending on personnel costs will increase by at least 60% in 2025, and this is due to the implementation of the new national minimum wage and also consequential adjustments for all cadres of the federal civil service. And checks have shown that 4.1 trillion was budgeted for personnel expenditure in 2024. So if there's a 60% increase, that means an additional 2.46 trillion will go, and that will bring the total sum to 6.56 trillion naira on personnel expenditure.
We expected that this was going to happen with the new minimum wage. We're looking at 47 trillion, the cumulative sum of the entire budget that's expected to be proposed, even though I think that we're still going to jack it up a bit. The National Assembly will still do its own thing. But again, for minimum wage, this is expected, and I think it has to be well captured so that we don't have cases of people not being paid their salaries and what have you. It has to be one of the priorities in the budget, actually. Major point of priority.
All right, then. Well, that is what we are looking at as it now. Do you think maybe if we have this, sharp rise as regards personnel expenditure, maybe some overhead costs can go or might go? Just to
will go, they will increase it. No, nothing's going to go. What will suffer are the capital expenditure components of the budget. That's what will suffer. That's overhead costs, and you think that you're going to trim down there and there. So we're not. I don't think that's going to change. Nothing is going to change with that. What I think will change is, or what I think will still happen, is the lack of commitment to ensuring, a robust implementation of the capital expenditure components of the budget. That's what will suffer, because the proposal will be there. So far, we are not able to make enough money to fund the capital expenditure component of the budget. It just remain there like mere proposal. We'll probably carry it over to the next budget.
All right, then. Moving on now. That's more details of that on page 50 of the Punch newspaper. Moving on now, still on the front page of the Punch, we also have here Dangote and Ipman to sign 240 million litres monthly petrol deal. And that will be on page 49 of the Punch newspaper. And what we have from that report is that Dangote has offered to supply 60 million litres of PMS to Ipman, that's the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, weekly. And that means we'll be getting 240 million litres monthly. And it was gathered from the association that depending on patronage, this is what they're going to get. All right, and this is even as Dangote's refinery is aiming to raise billions of dollars to import crude and increase production.
Sandra, there are stories within this particular story. It means that there's an opportunity for follow-up stories on this particular story. If we have all agreed, and the data statistics show that Ipman has about 70% of all filling stations, petrol stations in the country, then we can begin to ask ourselves, can we use this Ipman model beginning to question the daily consumption of petroleum products in the country, petrol, PMS in the country? If Ipman has signed a deal with Dangote to only get 240 million litres, right, from him, and 60, that's in a month, and 60 million litres every week. 60 million litres every week means that they are looking at about 9 million litres per day, right? Sandra, just an average of about 9-10 million litres per day. Let's probably just work with that. So if the NNPCL is still telling us about 40-50 million litres every day, how does that work? Unless the plant guys are going to come and tell us that, look, they are still going to be looking at other sources of getting the product. So I think that one of the things we're going to do, and I'm still going to probably escalate this to some of our colleagues in the energy and oil sector, to ask the Ipman guys, can you guys give us the cumulative total sum of what you guys sell in a month when it comes to petrol? So we cannot begin to ask ourselves the questions around this 40-50 million liters per day conversation when it comes to what the NNPCL is giving out as our daily consumption when it comes to PMS. So, but again, I think we're getting somewhere with this Ipman Dangote arrangement, 240 million liters every month, 60 million liters a week. A week is what the Ipman guys are looking for. So, but again, we need to ask further questions as to whether they'll be looking at other sources or they are just staying with Dangote. And if they are staying with Dangote alone, is that sufficient? Is that enough for them? You know, as Ipman members, who it is said, own about 70% of the petrol stations we have in the country. And then the other part of this story is Dangote still spending money to import crude oil. You know, we've been talking about this crude for Naira sale agreement between Dangote and the federal government. It is important for us to know where we are on that particular conversation. Because if Dangote is still telling us that we'll still be importing crude to be able to ramp up production, does it mean that the crude for Naira agreement, deal has not started? If it has started, does it mean that, look, Dangote is still not getting enough crude to meet up its production demands? If you understand what I'm saying. Because again, we see these presidential directives, people go to town to say, oh, this already. I was actually educating some people that the fact that it's even buying it in Naira does not mean that anything will change. Because it's still going to be paying at the dollar value. The only difference is that it's going to be paying in Naira. So if Dangote is still telling us that it's still going to be importing crude, then there's a problem somewhere. Again, tie that to the fact that the NNPCL is telling us that we're already doing 1.8 million barrels per day. And we are shooting towards 2 million barrels per day. So if we're already doing 1.8 million, why are we not able to supply enough crude to Dangote refinery? That it still has to now import crude into the country. So the web of confusion continues in the oil sector, and we'll continue to hope that one day we'll get clarity as to what is really happening when it comes to the Nigeria oil sector.
All right. As regards offtake from Dangote by Ipman, saying that they are saying that they can take 10 million and above, and that Dangote has given them 60, depending on their patronage. So that's meaning that Dangote can actually attend to whatever need it is that they have, and they have expressed confidence that before the end of November, direct supply would begin. They are finalizing discussions. The meeting Ipman and Dangote, they can start. And
they have 500 million liters now.
Yeah, exactly. Now, both Ipman.
Petrol day, for Dangote.
Now, both Ipman and major marketers have confirmed that pump prices have started reducing in many parts due to the competition that the deregulation of the downstream sector has caused. Ipman spokesman said the agreement between Ipman and Dangote is gradually pushing down the price of PMS. So by just the announcement that Ipman and Dangote met and they are ready to transact, these prices have already.
And you believe that, Canada? You believe that that's why we have marginal drop in price?
I'm reading the report.
You believe this statement you just read from what we know of the sector?
Hey.
I agree that prices have been dropping marginally.
I say just very little, just 10 naira, 15 naira here and there.
No. One of the Ipman member filling stations that I just bought for this morning, Sandra. And that filling station used to sell before for like about a month ago for like 1,100. Later they dropped it to 1,080 naira. But as at this morning they sold for 1,050 naira. But the reason for the drop, do you believe in what they are saying? Or maybe it was overpriced before.
I don't know.
Can you understand what I'm saying?
Well, you are raising very, very interesting points there. Thank you. Not just leave it at that. Further details on page 49 of the Punch newspaper as regards this deregulation open imports. Ipman has declared its resolve to patronize Dangote refinery. Some marketers and NNPC are going ahead with importation, though they patronize the plant when necessary. That's what we have here, saying that importation of petroleum product continue even as the federal government is trying to stop it through the Naira for crude deal with Dangote and other local refineries.
Who is stopping importation?
Federal government.
is stopping importation through the naira for crude.
Trying to stop it.
But they are still issuing out licenses. And the NNPCL and the NNDP are still saying that, look, energy security means that we have to still continue to import. So who is stopping what now? The man that you say you are selling naira for crude, he's telling you that he's still going to be importing crude oil.
There's a lot actually as regards, this oil conversation. You can get further details on page 49 of the Punch newspaper. Trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM. Time check is 21 minutes past 8, and we're moving on now to the Guardian newspaper. The major headline there: leveraging shared history, Nigeria, India to expand $7.9 billion trade ties, and that's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. We touched on this earlier on the show, where of course it was put out that the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, was in Nigeria to have a conversation as regards bilateral relations with Nigeria, and it produces quite some interesting features. One of course, which is expanding trade ties, and of course the conferment of Nigeria's second highest national honor, GCON, on the Prime Minister at the presidential villa yesterday. The story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. We're moving on now. We're moving on now, still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. How double-digit interest rates scuttled local vehicle acquisition, and that's on page 8 of the Guardian newspaper. So you may actually want to also dig deep into that and see what we have there. The National Assembly has reviewed how banks' double-digit interest rates contributed to the partial failure of the National Automotive Industry Development Plan 2013. One of the policy's goals was to expand the automotive industry by leveraging local resources and increasing the sector's contribution to the national economy. Whether or not that is how it went, you can get further details on page 8 of the Guardian newspaper. We also have.
Do we have any policy now? Do we have any policy on that?
That would
even buy the made in Nigeria vehicles. I know how much they are selling.
I think they're even more expensive than the imported ones. All right, so moving on now, we also have here Yuletide spending, supply disruption to push inflation up 34.45% then bills. That's on page 3. 2025 budget, experts divided over 1,400 per dollar exchange rate and others. The projections that they made from the 2025 budget. That story is on page 3 of.
You don't know where that projection is coming from, Sandra.
The 1,400 to a dollar.
Where? How is it going to happen? Unless we're going to create artificial liquidity, to push the dollar back. But that there's going to be a natural convergence somewhere, to begin to see us move from 1.7 to 1.4 by next year, the next budget cycle. Wait to see it happens, but I doubt if anything's going to happen. And it's wrong to project when you know it cannot happen, because projections are also supposed to be a bit realistic, looking at all the right indices. But again, these are mere projections. But again, the projection that is based on a faulty foundation, a false foundation, it's mere projection that's taking us nowhere. But let's see how it goes. Okay.
All right. Well, that's that as regards the stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. But we also have this story here. Court stops NBC from imposing fines and threatening broadcast stations, and that's on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. And what the report is giving us this morning is the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has ordered the National Broadcasting Commission to stop using NBC Act and the Nigeria Broadcast Code to impose fines, threaten to impose sanctions, and harass and intimidate broadcast stations and other independent media houses in the country, declaring that NBC and its agents lacked the legal power and authority to impose penalties unilaterally, including fines, suspensions, withdrawal of licenses, or any other form of punishment whatsoever on independent media houses for promoting access to diverse information on issues of public importance. The story is on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. Well, we have just a few minutes left on the show, and moving on.
But you know the funny thing about that story is that I'm surprised that it's Serap that went to court on behalf of broadcast station. You understand?
What if broadcast stations went to court and then they come for
Serap is the one helping us to fight that cause.
Do you think
we have to comment Serap on this one?
Do you think a broadcast station would have done that?
Why not? Why not? It would have been nice to see that look, or even born. You know, why not born? That's what I'm saying. But you know, again, there are people who may have one or two concerns about the way Serap has, conducted itself and their operations and what have you. But that's one civil society organization that has done fantastically well. They must be commended. They touch on everything, and they are not just touching on everything. They are also very intentional about what they do. The way they file their cases, the processes, the way they follow up to also see a resolution of the cases. They may not win all cases, but when they do these things, I think we need to commend them. Fantastic one from Serap and other civil society organizations who are doing what they need to do. You know, we talk about democracy, from the executive to the legislature, judiciary, and the fortress of the realm, the media, which is what we are doing. We also have to look at the activities of the CSOs, and one of them that has done fantastically well with our democracy is Serap, and they must be commended.
Thank you very much, Fad. That's as regards that. That's on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. Moving on now to Vanguard newspaper as we wrap things up this morning on trends in the papers. The major headline on the front page of Vanguard reads Ondo, how APC's Aidatiwa flawed PDP's Ajayi and others. And we have riders here. APC candidate scores 366,781. PDP had 113,845. Governor-elect dedicates victory to late Akeredolu, extends olive branch.
That's a wise thing to do, really. That's a wise thing to do.
The dedication?
Yeah.
Okay.
To his late principal, Akeredolu. Just to show some gratitude, even if he's not alive again. Just align yourself with people. You know, they fought him seriously.
Oh, yes.
He's a lucky man.
Oh, yes.
This Mr. When you name your child, you know what you understand. And now he's also able to win everybody to his side. The people that were fighting him, the Jimo Brahms of this one, Mr. Tʀᴇɪᴅs of this one, the other, everybody's that worked for him. He's a lucky man.
Congratulations to him then. Still on riders as regards that, we also have here vows to run an inclusive government. Election was daylight robbery. PDP and ADC candidates say. It's
the ADC guy who had a better showing than Labour Party. He got over 4,000 votes.
He had 4,138 and Labour Party had 1,162. But we can't. Labour Party guy, Mr. Olorunfemi, has said, oh, this is why he did not do well.
You still believe it?
He said, this is why he didn't do well.
And you believe it?
I'm just saying, let's put the option there that maybe this is why he didn't do well. Election was daylight robbery. PDP ADC candidate. His worst poll ever, PDP says. Our victories in Edo. Our victories in Edo and Ondo, not a fluke, says APC. Tinubu, Buhari, Sanwo-Olu, Oyebanji, Jibrin, others fit Aidatiwa. Yaga Africa condemns vote buying and police DIG Lord's conduct of poll. Stories on page 5 of Vanguard.
And when are we going to stop the Boko State?
I asked that question earlier on. And there's something that Mr. Curtis, had to say that I hope whatever it is that all those people received on Saturday would feed them, for the next 4 years. I really
can't take them 2 days, maximum 3 days.
What? I saw one video and I counted the money. It was I think 7,000 or 11,000 or so.
Okay, so what will 7,000 do?
One plate of curry.
So after you'll be something carry for the next 4 years.
And sugar and granite.
And that's all.
That's good. That's very good. Also, we have here on the front page of Vanguard, inflation trend overruns federal government's budget to cross 35% by year end, and that's on page 19.
Headline inflation, 35%.
Of Vanguard newspaper. These are the issues. Thank you for staying with us, but don't go anywhere. This is Trends in the Papers. Now we're moving on to Milan Focus. But before then, we'll take a short commercial break. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.